Hey everybody, guess what? Football time. It is almost here and I can't wait. Training camp officially started. Actually, officially started yesterday. The team actually got out on the field and practiced for the first time today, but it all starts without Terry McLaurin. Let's get into it. Now, I will give you my thoughts on everything toward the end of this video, but first, so yesterday, Tuesday, began with a 30-minute press conference with Coach Dan Quinn, along with General Manager Adam Peters, and of course, what was on everybody's mind was, what is the progress with the Terry McLaurin contract extension talks? Now, of course, Peters, he reiterated that he wants to get a contract done. The Washington Commanders have no reason, no purpose to trade Terry McLaurin. They want to get a contract done as soon as they possibly can, but other than that, he really didn't give other information in terms of how close the team was in making a deal with Terry. It seems like there's no deal yet, obviously, because Terry did not show up for training camp. So until then, it looks like no Terry McLaurin, and it will be that way for some time. I really hope he does show up pretty soon, but I digress. He said he wants to be paid market value of the top wide receivers, you know, the ones in the NFL. Washington, on the other hand, they appear to only be offering a little higher than what he's making right now. Meanwhile, Coach Dan Quinn, he was excited about moving forward into season number 2 with this regime. He's already in coach mode. He seemed like he was very adamant on getting everything going, getting the new defense, the new offense installed, and kind of went over the process of what that looks like. How does that actually happen? You know, he's talking to X's and O's. Adam Peters is going to be talking the business, but we really didn't find out a whole lot in that press conference. So remains to be seen what happens. I really hope it is not a distraction, but we're going to talk about that. And hey, if you're enjoying this video, please make sure you hit the like button on this. Give me a thumbs up if you do. If you're not, give me a thumbs down. That's fine. But please leave me a comment in the comment section. Let me know how I can do things better. And as well, let me know your thoughts on the video. There has been a lot of opinions on really both sides of the fence in terms of this whole Terry McLaurin holdout, okay? You have some in the let's just trade him, get it over with camp. Then, of course, you have the others who are like, no, we need to hurry up and sign him. Here are my thoughts. Terry McLaurin is a valuable member to this team, obviously. Unquestionably, he plays with his heart and his soul. And honestly, right now, he is currently the wide receiver number 1 for the Washington Commanders. But I took some competing stats from various wide receiver ones, such as the recently rewarded Garrett Wilson, as well as Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, you know, some of the more well-known top-tier wide receivers in the league. And here's what I found. Now, Garrett Wilson, his numbers in the past 3 seasons, honestly, they seem to be pretty similar to Terry McLaurin's. You know, similar in yards receiving, similar in the amount of touchdowns caught, but Wilson got paid. I think that's the biggest difference. Wilson got paid, but you got to remember, Terry also got paid around the 3-year mark as well. So it's not like Terry has never had a contract extension. That was also what really you consider a different market for wide receivers a few years ago, whereas the market certainly has changed this year. Now, Justin Jefferson, now his TD numbers aren't a huge difference over Terry McLaurin, but I think the biggest difference is the amount of yards receiving. Now, Justin Jefferson's TD numbers, touchdown numbers, if you will, aren't really a huge difference from what you see with Terry McLaurin. The difference really comes into the yards receiving. He's only really had one season where he just kind of barely made it over 1,000 yards. He's had anywhere from 1,400 up to almost 1,900 receiving yards just in one season. So almost 2,000 receiving yards in a season for Justin Jefferson. That's a pretty big difference to the numbers with Terry McLaurin. Look who's thrown to Justin Jefferson in the past several seasons and kind of equate that to Terry McLaurin. Now, Jamar Chase, he puts up similar numbers to Justin Jefferson with maybe not quite the amount of receiving yards, but definitely a clear second. Of course, Chase, he's had Joe Burrow to get the passes from. I think that makes a big difference. When you have a franchise quarterback who's throwing to you, that makes a big difference and elevates your game somewhat. Now, if we compare a more seasoned veteran, someone with the like of Mike Evans, for instance, from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, we see Evans, he averages just over 1,000 yards per season, with 2018 probably being his best season in terms of reception yards, and he averages around 10 touchdowns per season. Had some seasons where he hit 12 or 14 touchdowns. And it also helps, of course, when you have a future Hall of Famer in Tom Brady throwing to you, and then later on you have somebody like a rejuvenated Baker Mayfield, for instance. And Terry, during his 6 seasons so far in Washington, he's averaging consistently around 1,000 yards per season, with his best touchdown ratio coming in this past season, of course, playing with Jaden Daniels. But he didn't really have franchise quarterback in the last few seasons up until last year. And of course, maybe I'm being a little ahead of myself with calling Jaden Daniels a franchise quarterback. So far, he looks the part. And when you look at the numbers, obviously you feel Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, they're the upper echelon when it comes to wide receivers. I think that's probably a given. And of course, Mike Evans being the consistent wide receiver one for a very long time. In my humble opinion, of course, I think he's been very consistent, but he has been a clear number one wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And again, looking at the stats, Wilson, if we go back to Garrett Wilson, his stats don't jump out at you as far as being miles ahead of Terry. Yet again, Wilson got paid. Here's what I think we're seeing. It is the fact that Terry has been consistent with his numbers. If you consider everything, 2023 was probably the most difficult season for Terry McLaurin. Why? Well, he had Sam Howell throwing to him, and I know the Howlers are probably going to get upset with me, and I was a big Sam Howell fan as well. Let's just face it, Sam Howell, when I watched him play, he didn't really try to get the ball to Terry nearly as much. I saw him favor Jahan Dotson quite a bit. Some of the other receivers didn't always seem to get the ball to Terry McLaurin. And I think also when he had Eric Bieniemy, I'm not trying to pile on Eric, but just the fact that he really wasn't the consistent offensive coordinator like we have with Cliff Kingsbury today. So I think 2023 was kind of one of those years where, Terry kind of struggled, but he still managed to make plays. Still, if the argument is not to pay Terry McLaurin because his stats are not to snuff, then why pay Garrett Wilson? It really comes down to this. Are we seeing continued improvement in Terry McLaurin? I mean, each year, does McLaurin take the next step upward? Does that continued progression match the market for the top tier wide receivers in the league? I mean, you can argue that Terry's numbers were better playing with Jaden Daniels. I definitely give you that, but is it because it's Jaden Daniels, or is it a sign that Terry McLaurin is about to be the explosive Terry McLaurin that we have all been waiting to see? I mean, honestly, it seems that the Washington Commanders brass feels that a small increase from what Terry's getting paid now matches his performance. From a stat standpoint, that might be true and perfectly in line with the business aspect of things. But he has given up his body. He's taken some nasty shots on the field, and he has made some huge plays in very tense moments of games that I don't think any old wide receiver would make. And sometimes stats only gives you a small part of the story. And if that's true, then is the Commanders' front office taking also the intangibles of Terry McLaurin and those moments that he has made some big plays? Are they taking all that into consideration? And at the end of the day, I think these questions need to be answered. Does Terry bring to the table leadership qualities not found in any other wide receivers? I think so. Does Terry make plays that can't be made by any other wide receiver on the team? An argument can be made that maybe that isn't the case now that we have Deebo Samuels on the team, but certainly we haven't seen anything spectacular from, let's say, Luke McCaffrey as of yet, but he's only going into his second season. We don't know anything about this Lane guy coming out of Virginia Tech. Does Terry really have leverage in these negotiations? I don't think he does. I think holding out of training camp is probably the only thing he has left as far as leverage. I think the front office is betting on themselves that they have drafted right, obviously. And if Terry is not here, there is a wide receiver on the team who could take his place, can step up and make plays that Terry McLaurin has been able to make in the past. But certainly for us fans, I mean, talk is cheap. We want to see it on the field. For me, I'm kind of torn. I've seen the stats. I know the plays that Terry has made for the team in the last several seasons. I also know that Terry is entering his, seventh season on the team. And while consistent, I haven't really noticed a season where he has clearly progressed from the year before, but he also hasn't regressed. And I think that is the key point to everything as well. There's been no regression. Progression, it's a little iffy. And honestly, when you break everything down, you can see the dilemma that the front office is in. When it comes down to it, you can't sign contracts based on emotion, right? You can't sign contracts based on who the fans like. You can't sign contracts based on the good guy syndrome. Because you like them, you want to give them a good contract. But you have to base the contracts on the evidence, the analysis of the data, as well as the intangibles. You got to look at all of it, right? There's hard evidence, and then there's the evidence of true leadership. So both of those, I feel like, are being looked at and go hand in hand. So if you base Terry's contract on stats, it's pretty consistent, and I can see a marginal extension based solely on stats. Again, you can say that you know what you're getting with Terry McLaurin, right? And he's not going to disappoint you. You can base a marginal extension on knowing what you got with Terry. And you got a locker room leader who isn't afraid to step up and lead. You can most definitely base a good increase on an extension if you just basing it solely on leadership. But if we're talking about stats that stand out, a consistent increase in performance, a clear miles ahead of where Terry was when he first started in the league, well, I can't say that I've seen that. And that is likely the reason why we have not heard of a contract extension for the likes of one Terry McLaurin. Let me know in the comments. Knowing the stats, all the comparisons with some of the top tier wide receivers in the league, knowing the intangibles, knowing Terry McLaurin, the man, would you give him a huge contract extension? Or are you willing to take a chance on some unknown variable and see if that's enough to continue seeking out a Super Bowl run with or without Terry McLaurin? Let us know. And with that, hell to the Commanders, hell victory, let's go Maniacs.